we're back with the opening bell of the Frontier opening bell this Monday, the 26th of June. Is the final Monday for the month. And effectively by Friday, we'll be wrapping up the markets for the month, for the second quarter, and for the first half of the year. So quite a whole lot had happened across Frontier Africa within the first 6 months of the year. We'll be reviewing the first half for you later in the first week of July. But first, let's get into how the market finished off on Friday with the Nigerian stock market bucking his rally with about 0.26% on Friday. The market's still not yet able to grab that 60,000 level, despite all the rally that we saw from the May the 29th on to date, roughly 1 month since the new president was sworn in. Then, of course, the BRVM stock market up by 0.18%. On Friday, the Egyptian stock market started the new week on Sunday with a back foot in 2.4% in the red. That's EGX 30 for you, by the way, printing 17,287. You've got the Nairobi stock market back in the groove, 107.24, up by 0.3% on Friday. The market's clawing its way back after down sharply throughout the month of May, now getting the June back in the green territory. The GSE fell by roughly 1%. On Friday, again, you've got a whole lot of nervousness around the global markets and economy with the mutiny being reported in Russia by the Wagner Group. The market's now trying to find its way forward. Moscow is rattled by the mutiny led by the Wagner Group of mercenaries. All that in play today as we start anew with oil prices coming up a bit more to the upside, but things are moderating as traders begin to look at what will be the how Russia will work its way out of the current political internal problem between Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, which is mediating the whole Wagner issue there. So, but let's leave all those geopolitical issues and just move on with our own markets here and top business and economic stories on the African continent. Quickly, let's touch on with East Africa. And of course, President Ruto has been speaking globally at some conference over the last few days to the IMF, to the President of France, Macron in France, at a particular meeting, as well as the new World Bank President Ajay Banga. In the meantime, the Central Bank of Congo in Central Africa, of course, the Congo is now part of the East Africa, going by the EAC community, raised an interest rate from 9% to 11%. And Kenya is floating about 17.5 billion shillings to pay all marketers. That's not the total sum. By the way, it's about 45 billion shillings. So there's still a whole chunk out there that has not yet been securitized by the authorities in Nairobi. In the meantime, President Ruto wants $500 billion credit line to be set aside for weak economies. That was part of his message to the big boys from Washington, the IMF, Christina Georgieva, Ajay Banga of the World Bank, as well as President Emmanuel Macron of France and a few others who were listening to that very speech that he delivered just before the weekend. In the meantime, the International Monetary Fund says it's approved about $120 million for Uganda to support the Yoweri Museveni's administration, where the East African community is allowing Uganda to use taxes to protect the critical sectors of the economy against outside influences, just to get the economy up and running and protect your domestic economy and the markets. Good news there. Let's get on with the West African markets. What's the opening bell looking like today? It's going to be a very big day. Today, this morning, the Nigerian Exchange Regulation is hosting the ISSB, the International Standards Board, the ISSB, the Nigeria's financial sector regulator, the FRCN, which is the agency responsible for financial sector regulation in terms of the audits and accounts of companies in Nigeria, the public companies, that is. All of that is going to be a major, got about 12 speakers lined up to speak today across the board, and we'll be following that for you very closely. In the meantime, Nigeria's total debt when it comes to the oil swaps, about $3 billion report came in over the weekend that the State Oil Corporation, the NNPC Limited, did not remit about 780 billion naira into the Federation account for the month of May. In the meantime, the Debt Management Office in Nigeria is worried about the low revenue that the government has as country's debt is now around 81 trillion naira. And last week, there was no trading at the FX Futures window because the central bank has stopped providing quotes in the market and allowing these banks, commercial banks, to be in play. And that's the latest. The FMDQ in its weekly report said there were no quotes at all. There was no trading at the FX Futures window because the central bank is out of the game. And EBID, that's the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, says it's disbursed about 47 million euros to 3 companies in Mali as well as Ghana to support them in terms of providing local jobs and content. And Senegal, it says it's got about $2.7 billion in climate finance from the G7 countries. That's under President Macky Sall. Congratulations to the authorities in Senegal. While Niger made about 44 billion CFA from selling treasury bills and T-bonds in the market last week. That's coming through from last week market reporting for West African economies. Let's move on to the markets in Southern Africa. Zambia has won about $6.3 billion debt relief. Part of that coming from China. That's pouring a rally across distressed emerging markets, debt papers. But the way forward for President Ichilema's administration is still being watched very closely. In South Africa, Eskom seemed to be finding its way out of the morass of its load shedding. So that $23.6 billion debt that's now been rejigged will be allocated to the generation or power generation for South Africa, for Eskom. So that will help cut back very significantly on load shedding as the company plans to split into 3 units. It's all still in the works for the troubled utility giant in South Africa. And next door in Zimbabwe, this country's central bank, the RBZ, says this country has a good, stable FX exchange rate and vows to keep the monetary policy tight moving forward. We'll be looking at the next monetary policy decisions by the RBZ next month. That's in July. Angola says it sees signs of faster inflation after it cost full subsidy. There was some protest, remember, in Luanda. So all that is being handled by one of Africa's leading oil producers. So let's see what's in the box for North Africa this Monday with the central bank, the Egyptian central bank, last week leaving interest rate unchanged, at least for now. That's quite surprising looking at inflation and exchange rate in President Al-Sisi's economy. But Egypt is looking to stimulate some growth, and that's keeping his fingers off the interest rate button until the next monetary policy meeting. Egypt's non-oil trade deficit, however, was down by 31.4%. That's about $3.8 billion for the first quarter, January to March this year. There are deals being made. Iran and Algeria has agreed on boosting trade exchanges between the two countries. That's a handshake from across the Middle East to North Africa, one of North Africa's biggest economies, while Libya and the island of Malta said they've signed an electricity interconnection memorandum of understanding. And that is a wrap for today on Frontier Opening Bell. We welcome everyone to the Happy New Week. Make it profitable, everyone, whatever you're trading.